Hi, I'm Art Spiegelman. I'm going to read a very kind of unfortunately collapsed version of a wonderful story by George Saunders called My Flamboyant Grandson. It's in a collection called In Persuasion Nation, but I discovered it when I was asked to illustrate it for The New Yorker. Said I don't illustrate other people's stuff, but at the point that I read the story, fell in love with this author, who manages to catch America's wide-eyed and renewable innocence while keeping very clear eye on its horrors and excesses. So this is, like I say, it's a collapsed version to give you the shape of the story, but wonderful passages had to be left out, and I hope George forgives me. I had brought my grandson to New York to see a show, because what is he always doing up here in Oneonta? Singing and dancing, sometimes to my old show tune records, but more often than not to his favorite CD, Babar Sings. Sometimes even making up his own steps, which I do not mind, or rather I try not to mind it. Although I admit that once, coming into his room and finding him wearing a pink boa while singing in the voice of the old lady, "I have never met a man like that elephant," I had to walk out and give it some deep thought and prayer. Then one day, I had a revelation. If the lad likes to sing and dance, I thought, why not expose him to the finest singing and dancing there is? So I called 1-800-CULTURE, got our promissory voucher in the mail, and on Teddy's birthday, we took a train down to New York. As we entered the magnificent lobby of the Eisner Theater, I was in good spirits, saying to Teddy, "The size of this stage will make that little stage I built you behind the garage look pathetic." When suddenly we were stopped by a stern young fellow, a Mr. Ernesti, I believe, who said, "We're sorry, sir, but you cannot be admitted on merely a promissory voucher. Are you kidding us? You must take your voucher and your proof of purchases from at least 6 of our major artistic sponsors, such as AOL, such as Coke, and go at once to the Redemption Center on 44th and Broadway to get your real actual tickets. And please do not be late, as latecomers cannot be admitted due to special effects which will occur early and which require total darkness in order to simulate the African jungle at night." Well, this was news to me, but I was not about to disappoint the boy. We left the Eisner and started up Broadway, the Everly readers in the sidewalk reading the Everly strips in our shoes, the building-mounted mini-screens at eye level showing images reflective of the personal preferences that we'd stated on our monthly Everly preference worksheets, the numerous Cybeck sudden emergence screens outthrusting or downthrusting inches from our faces, and in addition I could very clearly hear the sound-only messages being beamed to me and me alone via various cacchio-oral focusers, such as one that shouted out to me between 42nd and 43rd, "Mr. Petrillo, you chose Burger King 8 times last fiscal year, but only 2 times thus far this fiscal year. Please do not forsake us now. There's a store 1 block north," in the voice of Broadway star Elaine Weston, while at 43rd, a light pole-mounted focuser shouted, "Golly, Leonard, remember your childhood on that farm in Oneonta? Why not reclaim those roots with a Starbucks country roast?" Said in a celebrity rural voice I could not identify, possibly Buck Owens. And then, best of all, in the doorway of PLC Electronics, a life-size Gene Kelly hologram suddenly appeared, tap dancing, saying, "Leonard, my data indicates you're a bit of an old-timer like myself. Gosh, in our day, life was simpler, wasn't it, Leonard? Why not come in and let Frankie Z explain the latest gizmos?" And he looked so real, I called out to Teddy, "Teddy, look there, Gene Kelly. Remember, I mentioned him to you as one of the all-time great dancers." But Teddy, of course, did not see Gene Kelly not being one of his preferences, but instead saw his hero, Babar, swinging a small monkey on his trunk while saying that his data indicated that Teddy did not yet own a Nintendo. So that was fun. That was very New York. But what was not so fun was, by the time we got through the line at the Redemption Center, it was 10 minutes till showtime, and my feet had swollen up the way they do shortly before they begin spontaneously bleeding, which they've done ever since a winter event in the freezing muck of Chobai, Korea. It is something I've learned to live with. If I can sit, that's helpful. If I can lean against something, also good. Best of all, if I can take my shoes off, which I did, leaning against a wall. And off we went, me hobbling, Teddy holding my arm, making decent time, and I think we would have made the curtain, except suddenly there appeared a citizen helper who asked, were we from out of town? And was that why, via removing my shoes, I had caused my Everly strips to be rendered inoperative? And I said, yes, I regretted this very much. And then I made a mistake. I brought out a 20 and leaning over said, "Look, please, the kid really wants to see this show," which is when he pulled out his pad and began to write. So I made a quick decision and seized that citizen helper's ticket pad and flung it in the street, shouting at Teddy, "Run, run!" This, to me, is not America. What America is to me is a guy doesn't want to buy, you let him not buy. You respect his not buying. A guy has a crazy notion different from your crazy notion, you pat him on the back and say, hey, pal, nice crazy notion, let's go have a beer. America to me should be shouting all the time, a bunch of shouting voices, most of them wrong, most of them nuts, but please, not just one droning, glamorous, reasonable voice. As for Teddy, as I write this, it is nearly midnight and he's tapping in the room above. He looks like a bird, our boy. He watches the same musical 15 times in a row. Walking through the mall, he suddenly emits a random line of dialogue and lunges off to the side, doing a dance step that resembles a stumble, spilling his drink, plowing into a group of incredulous, snickering Oneantans. He looks like no one else, acts like no one else. His clothes are increasingly like plumage. Late at night, he choreographs using plastic army men. He fits no mold and has no friends, but I believe in my heart that someday something beautiful may come from him. Thank you.